Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation Swamponomics videocast. I am Andrew Moran, Ellen's economics correspondent. This week, the world's little fires. Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Panama, demanding that the government do something about skyrocketing price inflation, going as far as calling for price controls on food and fuel. Sri Lanka is in the middle of a political crisis as protesters stormed the presidential palace, ousting President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled the country after admitting that the nation was bankrupt. For months, demonstrators have been protesting about the widespread food and fuel shortages. As Liberty Nation's Carolina Donna recently reported, Dutch farmers are blocking roads and infrastructure in protest of the government's decision to ban the use of nitrates and fertilizers. This comes months after Canadian truckers stood up to the federal and provincial government and their mandates. Tunisia is expected to experience a humanitarian crisis amid continuing nationwide demonstrations until late August as the African country suffers from widespread poverty, shortages, and unemployment. Even China is going through national upheaval on the streets. Protests have been happening all over China as citizens are trying to run on the banks and obtain their deposits out of concern that these financial institutions will fall. Is this the CNN effect of having cameras and social media everywhere, or is something else brewing in the international community? Indeed, it seems that the people are fed up with the ruling class. After 2 years of lockdowns, gross interventionist schemes, and incompetence or the fatal conceit on every front of public policy making, the public is rising up against the governments, the central banks, and perhaps even the World Economic Forum and the prototypical villain Klaus Schwab. This was only inevitable, of course. What else would you expect if the statists and globalists attempted to decimate the livelihoods of thousands of people in the name of climate change? What else would you expect if the government starved the citizenry amid political corruption and ineptitude? What else would you expect if the financial institutions kept your hard-earned money from you? Indeed, you can't blame the people, and nor should you. When you are repeatedly told that you will own nothing and be happy, you will eat the bugs, or you will carpool and be happy, you're going to respond, and perhaps not in kind. Throughout history, be it a war or an economic collapse, the root cause of most of these issues has been the failure of governments, politicians, bureaucrats, and the central banks. They are the ones who initiate the myriad of problems and then compound these issues with even greater blunders and boondoggles. At this point, it almost become accepted that any public policy proposal and panacea would fail. The nature of bureaucrat elected officials is the famous Groucho Marx joke. Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Now, on the list of the little fires occurring simultaneously all over the world, there was an absent country: the United States. Americans have yet to revolt against the government, but this does not mean the US is immune to deteriorating conditions. An increasingly unpopular president, soaring price inflation, an economy slipping into a recession. These are all the things unfolding at the same time in the land of the free. Perhaps the American people will take a more civilized approach to kicking politicians to the curb at the voting booth. Whether this will result in change or not remains to be seen, yet again in November or in 2024. But the record of both Republicans and Democrats has been abysmal. Remember, both parties got the United States into this mess in the first place, either with the GOP's $2.1 trillion CARES Act or the Democrats' $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. In both cases, the Federal Reserve System facilitated this reckless spending and unleashed a tsunami of monetary stimulus and relief. Indeed, maybe the silver lining in all of this madness is that any remaining citizen with respect and confidence in the Leviathan will have abandoned his or her trust and faith in the state. If this happens, maybe the new rallying cry will be "End the Fed." That's it for me this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column where I talk about all things recession. Also, please sure to check my previous interviews with former Congressman Ron Paul, legendary investor Jim Rogers, and economist Stephen Moore. Thank you.
We're doing it for real. Really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style. Fight for freedom.
The tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.